All right, I am back online, and or at least I think I am. Let's find out. Get back to here, and then which one? I have two that are listed as live right now. Oh, one's listed as no data, so it's probably this one. Analytics. Okay, and the stream rate should be on the faster setting. So this one is ultra low latency. We'll see how that works. Since is my resolution at 4K? Okay, yeah, it seems like it's using the 4K setup. Okay. Oh wait. Anything else of importance in the settings? No. Okay. Test fast stream. Hello. Okay. So it looks like that was at about the same time. Sent it 9 minutes and 9 seconds. I got 9 minutes and something. I don't know what. Nice. Okay. Now this sounds like it can be more responsive. Hopefully the quality of the video actually comes out well. All right, so the problem I was running into with the code last time is I had a queue set up in my code, and I forgot to actually set how many audio clips were supposed to show up in the chain. It was set to 0. So no matter what, the queue always got 0 clips, and that's why nothing was ever playing. All right, so that's fixed. However, the binary issue, I really want to deal with that now, which means that I have to get rid of the baked data for, or the serialized data for the baking system and for the designer system and for the procedural system. Fortunately, all the code for that is pretty similar, and it shouldn't take too much work for this. There are a couple things where I'm going to want to see if I can do a little bit better. I know I can convert, I can save a byte array and do that through a block copy, but I don't know if I can do that with an unsafe struct or an unmanaged struct, but I want to find out. All right, let's see. So inside of here, let's see, we've got data, and the data I need to store. Well, I guess the designer comes in and the designer has all that data. So I'm going to see all the effects from the designer all the time. Um, and oh, I suppose if I'm going to do this, oh, I know what I'll do. I'll put a button or a Boolean state on the actual scriptable objects that hold the data right now. And I will use that to create the the binary data. All right, that way I've got the binary data, and then I can convert my other systems over to read from that binary data and then write to that binary data without using the scriptable object. Or if it uses a scriptable object, it doesn't save it. All right, let's try this out. To begin with, I need a folder in here. We're going to start using resources. Okay, assets, create folder, resources. Actually, I don't need to create it there. I'll create it in the Vigilante folder, which I'll find out quickly enough if I need to move it. And if I do, then I just have to move the folder. All right, so resources, and then let's go with create folder data. All right, so resources, anything that I put in resources is going to go out with the game. So whatever data and files I put in there will go with it, even if the game, even if Unity doesn't understand it as part of the game, that the code just chooses to load this. So I'm going to put a reference in there. Now, I also have a data folder up here where I've got this various runtime data. Yeah, all of that I need to change out. I need to get rid of it. Okay. UI panel settings. Okay, no, that's not what I want. All right, so now inside of this, I want to be able to store data. And let's see, I'm going to use, I can basically come up with any data type that I want. File. I do need the script to actually save it out. So where is procedural designer? Serialization. Oh, yeah, it has to do this, and it's got like 300,000 plus elements. Also, to add salt to it, it's got, oh, I see messages. Yeah, weird to get millions of data inside scriptable objects. What about streaming assets? Define streaming assets. Also, please, can you share what are the options for storing data and why you choose what you're going to do? Okay. Um, so I went with serialization to begin with. Just put the data inside of a scriptable. I've got an array of vector threes. And that makes sense. I can do that. It's very easy. Once I actually compile, once I let it bake and produce the data, then all of a sudden I've got 300,000 of these. And I didn't know what those numbers were going to look like. I didn't know how it was going to affect the performance. So was not a big deal. Make a solution that works. Now, in this case, we found out that the performance is terrible. So now I do need to replace this. So I'm unaware of something that Unity has to be able to deal with this directly. One of the things, like the data that's held inside of scene objects, inside of prefabs, inside of meta files, all of these things are just serialized YAML or JSON. And so you get this data that's stored inside of there. And the reason that it does that is so that it can save over, it can find diffs easier inside of repositories when you're trying to commit code and it figures out what the changes are. So it makes sense for Unity's default to move you, or to use that one, to use serialized text data. Now, I am unaware of Unity providing a binary solution for this. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do a quick check on this just to see if there is an option. Does Unity have a way to store scriptable data in binary instead of JSON? Or JSON slash YAML? I think it's all in YAML. Okay, binary serialization. I don't want binary serialization. Well, okay, serialization is specifically the fact that it can extract the data from the object and put it back. Streaming assets is kind of the same way addressables store huge scenes of data. Oh, addressables. So you're talking with streaming assets. Like, I'm used to addressables, and so like the idea of addressables, you've got a bunch of your content that's stored externally to the actual game, and then you can download it and add it to your game, and then you've still got that asset sitting there. So as long as it's still the latest, then they can pull that information in at the time that they need to. But as far as I was aware, I don't know if that was binary or not, or if that was serialized. But either way, even if it is serialized, I believe, or binary, then I believe that uh, while it's still an editor, the data is still going to be YAML. Oh man, you're going to be punished. You said you're going to do researches about that before you go with binary, but apparently you did not. No, I didn't see stream. The research that I was doing was why on earth I wasn't getting a count out of uh, queuing and dequeuing. Which type was that? Where's Ryder? Somewhere sitting in here. There. Uh, Queuing and dequeuing a queue. So queuing and dequeuing elements from a queue, and I wasn't getting a count. I kept getting a count of 0, and that's what I was trying to research. I was seeing if there was something with Unity that was screwing that up, or if I was just completely wrong in my memory about how to use a queue, or find some other reason. So that was the item that I was intending to research. However, the finding a solution to actually save the file. Oh, no problem. I think I was also said I was going to find a solution to save the file, and I needed to research specifically how to save it to an asset. I needed to make sure that I was saving it to an asset that was also that was going to be available to me uh, at development time in the IDE, and also that would automatically build out with it at runtime. So when I build it, the files would get included and the same paths would work. That was I haven't solved that issue before, so I needed to find the solution. Um, but when I found out about it, the resources folder, anything that you put in resources goes out with the project. Now, I understood resources like a long time ago. Resources used to be about when the project, you get the project, all of the files that are inside of resources, those get loaded into memory first. That's like one of the first things that load up, and that's why one of the reasons you end up with a longer loading time. However, I think it was like in 2017, Unity 2017, maybe earlier, they ended up switching resources so it didn't actually load the values from it until you used it. What I was not aware of until I did the research this afternoon was that resources also means that even if Unity doesn't understand the file, even if nothing is referencing it, Unity is still going to include it. So that's the solution that I'm going to be using. I'll be using a file that is saved into resources, and resources appears to have a binary. The text asset. If you load it a resource as a text asset, it has an option to read it as binary. So you get the whole data as a binary array, which is basically exactly what I need. I can do a block copy to transfer that over to an array of a different type. Now, I do have one potential challenge with that, and that is I don't know if I can make it transfer the data over from a byte array to an array of structures, even if they're unmanaged. Because of the fact that data is hidden inside of the array, the array itself is just a pointer, and then it has reference to what's going on in the heap. And so sometimes there's serialization issues with that, or binary data like block copy issues. But I did a little research on that, and it looks like it should be easy, so I'm going to try it. I've done block copies before, but it felt more complicated at the times, and I was doing it at a lower level, or I'm using pointers. Okay, so anyway, back on to this one. I don't think I'll need to use pointers for it. So over here we got not FX. I need not baked traffic, which is the traffic that I need. Okay, it's not in system, so we have baked traffic over here. Yes. Now where is regular traffic? Traffic car. Is it just under the term traffic? No. Baked traffic was not the data. Designer traffic data. Okay. Designer traffic data is the structure, the scriptable object, and inside of it we have node and index map. So basically it's two arrays of simple structures. Okay, so now I need to see if I can do a block copy on this. So inside of there, we've got this data, we've got a clear node, we've got an add node. Now we're going to do an onValidate. Private void onValidate. Vector3. I still need to get like ding sounds or something to happen when message comes up, because it's over in the corner screen over there somewhere, and I have to like look over every now and then to see if something happened. Okay, not vector3. Inside of here, I do need data. Let's go with this one. Public bool write to file. Okay, how do I get I remember that there's a way to reference files from the file system. Oh, I know what I'll do. write to file, public bool read from file. Okay, so this is my testing pattern. I'll test to see whether or not these actually work. So first off, we need public, not public, if write to file if write to file, then write to file equals false, and then write file. No, write file. I meant what I was writing. All right, Alt Enter, yes. And if read from file, then read from file equals false, and read file. Okay, so I've got the different commands. Now I need the file name. Public string file name. So I'll just do this by strings for now. That should work fine. Okay, so to begin with, we need to get the file. Let's see. What? Okay, I lost control of this environment for a second, or it wasn't responding. Oh. So some of the issues that I had with Rider in the past, which I don't really have anymore, but I might be, now that I'm using it more concentratedly, I think this might come up more often. One of the reasons I didn't like Rider in the past was because its connection with Unity provided so much stuff going on directly inside of Unity. Specifically to a point that it harmed performance, that it would automatically notify Unity that I'm doing stuff and that I'm making changes. And so the compiles start building before I even get there. And that's good. I like that, except when it starts doing it ahead of time and starts doing it regularly. And then in this case, it appears that I'm losing control of the environment for a few seconds while it does this, where it's unresponsive. I'm hoping that isn't the case. Personally, I want to stick with Rider and not use Visual Studio. You can also look at other options too, though. Okay, so now private, we want to read file. We want to write the file first. Write the file. I guess I could just do this as a test. So yeah, let's do this as a test. Public. What do I need? If I'm going to write a file, I'm going to need to export the information and, well, yeah, let's just test this. First off, let's do it with bytes. So byte array, is that what I needed? Array, vector 3. That should work. So if I have the type, the array, okay. Node, and we'll do 2 nodes. What's inside the node? Normal and position. All right. Oh, I don't even need to save the file. I can test this with memory for now. All right, public, no, node array ns equals new all right, new node normal rate. Why am I not getting IntelliSense? Oh, duh. Equals vector 3 dot up. Comma, and then position equals vector 3 dot down. And now I'm going to do another one. new node normal equals vector3 dot 0, comma, position equals vector3 dot 1 times float dot max value. All right, so that gives us two nodes. Now we want to convert this to a byte array. So I'm going to do, we need a byte array. I've got some notes on the side. All right, so I need to know the size of the struct. We're going to do that. And I don't need to know this at design time. So public, oh yeah, but node should be 24 bytes. So this should be 48 bytes. All right, var b equals 24. No, what am I doing? Equals new byte. And inside of this, we're putting 48 bytes in there. So the first one is that's 12, 24, 36, and 48. Okay. All right. So now we got that one. And now we need to do, what was the command? It's system.buffer.block copy. And now inside, it wants an array. It's not caring about what type. Okay, good. Array dot, not array. This is NS, comma, and BS. Will it save to BS or not? Comma. And now what other fields does this one need? We got the, oh, we need the initial offset. All right, so what is that one? SRC. What's the next field? The next field is source offset. Zero. All right. DST. And the destination is going to be BS. We're going to copy it over to BS. Okay. And then we need destination offset. DST.offset. DST offset. Oh, okay. 0 for both. Okay. And then the last thing is the count. Okay. Now, what is the count? Is the count the size in bytes? I need an actual lookup for this one. Over there and there. All right, block copy. We got main program destination block copy, the source of size of 2 times size of int. So in this case, the source is an int array. And it's also, that's the same thing for target. I guess it's the source one that matters. Okay, so now count the number of bytes to copy. Okay, perfect. So in that case, it's 48. All right, so now we're doing a block copy. So now BS should be the exact data that we need. To test this, we're going to say var node var ns2 equals new node 2. So now we got 2 nodes, and now we want to do a block copy again. So I'll just copy over the command, Control C and Control V, block copy. Okay, system.buffer.block copy. So now our source is BS, the bytes, and the destination is NS2, offset of 0 for both, and the byte count is 48 again. Now, I'll be able to know the array size that I need to generate because it'll match the file size. I can get that information before I open up the file. Actually, I'll have the byte length, so I can use that one. All right. Okay, so system.buffer.block copy. And now at this time, we want to test to see whether or not the values are true. So debug.log 1 equal plus, and this one's going to be ns dot normal, ns0 dot normal equals ns1 equals ns1 0 dot normal. Oh, ns2 ns2 0 dot normal. That's supposed to just go to a true statement. Okay, that should work better. Okay, now that I've got that one, let's put in a Control C, Control V. All right, now I need commas at the end of this. Comma, 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 tab. And here we're going to go with backslash n2 equals backslash n3 equals and backslash n4 equals. Okay, so now I need, these two are going to be 1. And then I need position. Okay, so get rid of that one. That didn't get rid of the end. Oh, got it, because that's supposed to be here with that. I don't need a comma, no comma. Did I put the commas here? I probably just did. All right, plus. Oh, wrap and wrap. Okay, one extra parentheses missing here. Okay, so when I test this, this is going to attempt to do a block copy of a node array with normals, positions, and 2 values going into a byte array and then back out into the array and then testing to compare the values. Okay, so let's make sure that this one works. There. I don't want to have to rebake all the data that took, actually, what did it take? I think it took 6 minutes or 16 minutes. So it actually wasn't too long, but too long to do in a stream or in a live stream. All right, so now let's go find that data. What have we got? Here's the procedural, which is going to take a while to pull up because of serialization. This is all to get rid of you. Hold on, it tells me. I am holding. Okay. Hide nodes. 500,000. I thought it was 300,000. Why did that grow? Okay, let's test it. Was right to file the correct spot? Right to file. Yes. All right. Right to file. Object must be an array of primitives. It was. Unsafe struct node. Does it? It's an unmanaged array, just like it supports vector 3, doesn't it? Okay, let's go test this out. Block copy. Object must be an array of primitives. Okay. So it doesn't actually like vector 3s. Is that the case? Okay. Let's do this. Block copy vector 3 array to byte array. I can't be the first person who's doing this. Get an array vector from a byte stream. Okay, the two verse values might be reasonable. What do we got up here? So we got an array of vector 3s. Now we want to do the byte. AI is telling me it's no, what's this? It's telling me to use this command. Vector 3 to byte array. Here we pass in an array of vectors. And then we convert that into a float array. Gotta be a more effective way to do this. Okay, byte array, block copy, byte array.length. But in this case, we're still creating duplicates data. Okay, I'm not trying to make super performance on this. Well, I am going to be trying to make sure it can read fast. This should blow away the speed performance for deserialization anyway, even if I do have to do 2 byte copies and loading the data off the hard drive. Okay, so it can't handle vector 3. Is there an alternative to block copy that can support arrays of unmanaged structs? Like, I don't see why it's limited to just the basic types. Does span give us access to that? Okay, I've got a couple commands to look at. So first, go away. All right, how to get an array of vector 3 from a byte stream. In this one, vertex buffer size, we get that. Now we've got our vector 3s, and then we do a block copy in this. Oh, yeah, they're failing. Have done something similar. Do not recall the exact code. Well, that's helpful. That one provides a series. Okay, so is that not an answer? At least I don't see one. So let's go to the next one. Convert vector 3 to byte array. Block copy, bit converter, get bytes. So it's doing an offset for every single type, and it's going to do a block copy of every single one. At that point, we might as well just do an array copy from the get bytes. Time to ask robots, I guess. All right, yeah, good point. Let's try it out and see what a robot tells me to do. Go to an expert mode, deep think, search, keep those on. And now in this one, Unity, I have 500K vector 3 array. I have a 500K vector 3 array, and serialization takes forever. I need a method to save my data to binary and back out. I tried to do a byte copy, a block copy, but it doesn't support unmanaged types. It wants data types. Is it possible to use an array of is it possible to copy a byte array? Is it possible to copy a byte? No. An array of unmanaged structs to a byte array? Similar to the block copy command. All right. Interpretation, which works for arrays of primitives, but vector 3 struct unmanaged. Burst sense. Actually, in Unity, vector 3 is a struct of 3 floats. It's blittable, unmanaged. The user says it doesn't support unmanaged types. It wants data type. Might be confused about the method signature. Okay, so this seems to be indicating that there's some way to do it. We'll see. Explain how buffer.block copy works. Okay, this is stuff I was having to do before, like create a GC handle, do Marshall copying, but I was in low-level memory and having to basically export from object memory because the array is stored to the heap, and that's managed code. All right, so inside of this one, what's it going to say? Element size equals Marshall size of vector 3. In this case, byte count, well, that gets 1. Oh, times that. So yeah, we're getting a byte array. Got it. Okay, GC handle, GC allocate. So we're allocating the pointers. We're getting we're pinning the memory so that garbage collection doesn't screw with it if garbage collection happens to execute. Okay, we don't need to pin it because that apparently is pinning it. And then we free what we're doing. So we create the handle and then we free it. And then finally we've got bytes. Okay. Well, let's just copy these ones for now and see if they actually work. So it makes sense from what I'm seeing, but I don't know if it'll actually work. Let's try it. Inside of the function, yeah, I know. We need those extra types. Cool. All right. So now with this one, with write to file, instead of doing a block copy, we're now going to say, wait, we have to return the byte array. So this generates the bytes that we need and returns it. But it's returning it by reference, so that's fine. Okay. All right, so instead of creating the BS, we're going to just trust what it has. We can rewrite this, and so we can put the exact element sizes that we need, and we're not going to be using this one. Let's take this copy of the code, Control K C. We'll retain that. Okay, now we need to produce the new copy. So var bs equals, and this one is going to be, what was that command? 2 bytes. And now it wants an array of a particular struct. In this case, I don't want the struct. I want node array. Size of node. Okay, 2 bytes. And now it wants ns, comma. That was it, just ns. All right. Now var ns2 equals, and that's supposed to be this one, which is node from bytes. And inside of here, again, that's got to be node. Node, node, nodes, nodes, and nodes. Now over here, node. Okay, so I think that data is all done. This is what? Performance issue? Can I use, oh, yeah, it's not finished yet. From bytes. And that's going to be BS. Okay, so the code is basically the same, but we're calling these methods instead. All right, let's see if it works. Deserialization time. I think AI can be useful, but I don't like to depend on it. There's also a whole separate issue. Um, I have very little idea why there are companies out there saying all of our code is built by AI and we just have people managing it now, or things like most of our code is, because if AI produces the code, you don't own the copyright to it. You can't qualify that as your IP. So if you do that, then technically you don't have the rights to license it. If somebody were to take your software and then start using it without paying you, and then you tried to charge them, they could very easily turn around and say, hey, look, they've got statements out there saying that they're using AI to produce this stuff. And so they don't actually own the rights to it. They can't charge me with anything. This is open. This is public for everyone to use. And there's a very easy argument that if anyone is using AI, or sorry, if you want to take ownership of previous state of copywritten material, then you have to make significant changes. Now, the problem is that that would be almost impossible for most companies to make significant changes to primarily AI code bases because they're not paying as much attention. People are not experts in what the AI is doing. In most cases where they're trying to depend on it, people get farther and farther away from the code, and actually having to go in and make some significant, meaningful change to the code would be almost impossible. Make laws for their own benefits. Laws. Yeah, that's entirely reasonable. The people with the money usually are the ones who dictate the laws. So that makes sense. All right, right to file. True. No, I didn't want to go in the code. I want to see this. All values came back true. Okay. So this code effectively worked. Yeah, I remember bringing this up. I was mentioning marshalling. That was one of the things that I had to do when I was doing this before, but this was during the last presentation or the last live stream. But it felt complicated when I was doing it at the time. However, I was using pointers in there, and so the GC allocation, setting up everything related to that, that was all a big pain. Because I was also doing it where I'm working with reference the ampersand handle. I'm using the pointer, the asterisk, and and also the arrow. So I'm using the data entirely different than how I normally use it inside of C Sharp. However, this is not as low level as that. Sometimes you need to do that when you're interacting with C++ from C Sharp. Or sometimes you do it just because you want to deal with data differently. Okay, so now inside of this one, we have a 2 bytes where we pass in a bunch of nodes, and we're going to call this nodes. Okay, I'll enter. Good. Okay, so we got the nodes. That one returns nodes, and that's node. So we got nodes. The other one is add nodes, add index map. Okay, got it. Index map is just a pair of ints. If it's a pair of ints, that's 4 bytes. I could save it as a uint 64. Can I inherit from uint 64? System dot u int 64. Hey, where's my types? Okay, let's just go down to this one first. Public int. There we go. Why weren't they showing up on the other type? Is it because I can't serialize that type? Int 64. I'll call it C. Now, in this case, there's a serialization trick that I'm doing here, and I'm testing out if I can expand on it. So in this one, I'm going to do with unsafe. And this one, I need to know the order of the data. What was it? Not default execution order. System dot. What's the command to do this? All right. Just C sharp. Unsafe struct set byte order of fields. Okay, yeah. Unsafe context general, fixed and movable variables. No. That's it. Struct layout. Okay. Struct layout. And inside of this one, dot, I need the explicit one. Okay. So with this one, I get to define what the byte order of the data is in this one. Structs do not support inheritance. I was questioning that one primarily because it was a data type that I wanted to base it off of. Like I wouldn't normally expect to be able to handle. Wait a minute, structs can handle interfaces. Um, I know they can handle interfaces because we use that for ECS. But then another data type, I was questioning that since it's an unmanaged data type and the data inside should match the same size of it. But yeah, that wasn't happy. All right, so anyway, we're doing this one and then field offset, and inside of this one is 0. Oh, I need to close it up. All right, field offset 4. And then the last one is also field offset 0. Because in this case, I mean in Unity, structs not support inheritance. I mean in Unity. Okay. Anyway, so in this one, I basically have a structure that is 8 bytes long. It has 2 fields in it, A and B, that effectively set what the data size is. Then there's also an int64. So here's int32, 2 and 32, so that takes 64 bits or 8 bytes altogether. And then here's a single 8-byte int64 field, and it starts at 0 as well. So basically, if I set C, it's also going to set A and B. And if I change A or B, that's also going to change C, just because the data overlaps. So technically, this is also a structure of, this is just a structure of floats, or of int64s, which is why I wanted to test that to see if I could inherit from it. I really want that to be a thing. Int 64, but yeah, you're right. It doesn't. It's so close in its meaning. It could do it. But then, oh, that's the issue. int64 is a basic data type that the compiler and .NET just understand. And so it's got a full implication of what it means already built into the language, into the compiler, into the environments. And so inheriting from that, even if it is something where it already is an int64 and it effectively uses the exact same bytes, and if you stored data to this, stored an int64 to this, it would still act like an int64. It's technically not. Okay, so anyway, int64, we got that one, but that's not actually going to help me here because I still need to convert this over. And so it doesn't matter if I'm just doing an index map and I'm going to use the structure of that. So I didn't gain anything from this. Yeah. All right. So let's do our conversion of types. We also need to store 2 separate arrays. And, ooh, okay. So let's just modify the 2 bytes function so that we actually get the data we need out of this. All right, so instead of this one, we get the size of node, and we don't need either of them. We're going to get rid of the static function, static capability on this. So we don't need the data it's trying to store in here, 2 bytes. We're just getting the byte array back out of it. So now we have 2 different things. So we have element size equals, and we need the total count of items that are going to show up inside of here. No. Total bytes. Okay, let's do that one. Oh, Marshall size of node. let's create I'll just make the lines as we go. All right, so int size nodes equals, and this one is size of this times, and now in this one, what do I need? This is the size of this times nodes dot length. All right, so that gives me the size in bytes of how many nodes I need. Now I need int size in bytes. Size, what's the other one? Index map. Size map. Mappings equals Marshall dot size of index map times mappings dot length. All right, and then I'm going to put in one more. We're going to say bytes equal, oh, we need the byte array. So bytes equals, and on this one we need, what is it? 8. We got 2 ints. We need 2 size fields that are going into this. Technically we can get away with 1, but why process the extra data when I can put extra data safety inside of it? And that's only an extra 4 bytes. Okay, so we have 8 bytes for 2 different sizes that we're going to store, and then we need to know where those sizes are. Yeah, okay. Size mappings. Oh, I should also put in count, so let's make it 16. It'll just make it easier in the end. All right, so bytes equals, oh, this needs to be a new byte. And that's 16 plus size nodes plus size mappings. All right. Oh, messages. I'm going to make their laws. Okay. Structure not support inheritance. I mean in Unity. Okay. You can have the size in struct layout, so you do not need to inherit. Oh, you mean just putting a struct directly, or putting a field directly into the struct that says size? Could be done. I'm assuming that's what you're talking about. Or me. Okay. But there is a chance that the data type will actually get saved with some additional byte value in it. Like it may choose to store it as a 16 byte field instead of a 12 byte, because then you end up with like 5.3 in a chunk line or in a cache line, as opposed to if it goes to 16 bytes, you get 4 exactly, and none of the data gets split across from one cache line to the next. And that can be more efficient in processing, because if it goes between 2 different cache lines, when it's trying to pull in the data, each cache line, it pulls in a cache line, then it has to pull in part of that data from there into a register. And then that second cache line comes in and it has to pull in part of that data, and it adds more instructions that have to cross over from the different register, or for the different cache sizes. Now, that's information I've been told that has been explained to me before, but it may be different in how that happens on different processors. Field offset is enough. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, so I know that this is 8 bytes. Oh yeah, this one I know is 8 bytes, but the one with the vector 3 was 12 bytes. So technically the compiler, the C# compiler, or Unity compiler may have chosen to store it as 16 bytes, even putting in like a buffer space of 4 bytes or padding of 4 bytes that it just doesn't use. So in this case, I do like the idea of using the size of, the Marshall size of, because that'll account for any padding that gets added as well. All right, so now int. Oh yeah, so we got the bytes, which are in here twice. We don't need the rest of those ones. We can get rid of them. Okay, now we need a GC handle to allocate nodes, and we also need another one. We need a second one that's nodes. This should be capital nodes. GC handle H2, and let's call this one H1. H1 equals GC handle dot alloc, and this one is mappings, comma, pinned. Okay, so I have two handles. I am pinning nodes and I am pinning mappings. Now that I have done that, we got marshall.copy. It's copying H1, which is the pinned why am I forgetting the term? Not handle, pointer. All right, which is basically the pointer to the array, to the data of the array. All right, so H1 now, we also have data just to set in there to begin with. So let's add those first ones, which is the bytes. We need the 4 different sizes that are going in. So public, not public. Let's go with int, and these are going to be the different sizes that we have. Node count equals nodes.length, int size, node size equals, and that should be this one. Oh yeah, I've already got those ones. Okay, so I just need node count and I need mapping count. Equals mappings dot length. All right, so I've got the different values that I needed. Now I need to push those over into the array. All right, so now we're in the try, and we're going to say Marshall dot copy. No. In this one, I want to copy the byte array. All right, so this one's just array.copy. Block copy. Block copy will work happily here. Buffer.block copy. And inside of here, we need the src. The source is, and what was the command for this one? I literally just saw it in one of the things we were looking at. But it was a bit converter, I think. Bit converter. That sounds right. So source bit converter dot get bytes. And so we're going to get the bytes for size nodes, comma, and now it wants to know the src offset is going to be 0, comma. Okay, the next one is destination, which is bytes. All right, the next one is destination offset, and that's also 0 for now. And the last one is the count, how many bytes we're moving, 4. Okay. So that handles the first one. Next, we need the other bytes to get copied over as well. Control C, V, V, V. So now we got size nodes, size mappings. We've got, what is it? Node count and mapping count. You know what? I'm going to move these up to here just because I can clean that up a little bit. Control C, mappings count goes to there. They build off of each other anyway. Technically, I don't need any of these. I could have just taken the length field and passed it into here, but I like having the exact name of the variable written out in this case. It just helps my mind keep track of it. All right, so in this case, block copy, size mappings, not node count, mapping count. So we're saving them, but they are at the wrong spots. So source is always going to be offset by 0. The count is always going to be 4. Destination offset, we're going to start incrementing this one. So 4, 8, and 12. Oh, wait. We started 0, so our offsets. Yeah, no. This is where the index of where we're starting. So that's correct. 0. But then why wouldn't this one be 1? That one's 3. We go 0, 1, 2, 3. So that's, why does this feel wrong that these ones are even numbers? It's because we start from the odd number because we're, okay, duh. We've got an array, we have 4, and now we need to start from the 5th index to move over, but that's -1, so it's 4. I don't know why that was throwing me off. This is stuff I've done since the 90s. I'm old. All right. I was also a teenager then. Okay, byte count. All right, so that's, we'll get to byte count in a minute. That's different. So now in this one, we've got the mappings of the sizes. They're all being stored. Now we're going to copy this stuff over. We're copying this to bytes, and we're going to start. What is the start index and length? Comma. Is there other data to pass into this? The start index from which side? I want the starting index for the source. And I want the starting index for the destination primarily. Oh no, can I not do this? Okay, time to do another search. C# Marshall dot copy. We're starting from the first one's the pointer. Okay, so the pointer we can't change. That we're saying this is the pointer. We are starting from that spot. So whatever we're reading into it. And so if we have an offset being listed, that is the offset of the destination. Excellent. I hope. You know what? Marshall dot copy. Let's go take a look at that. C# Marshall copy method, yes. And I want the offset, one with an offset in 32. That's types. You don't show me the field names? How confusing that is? Okay. This is some of the worst piece of documentation right here. The name of the fields actually tell us what their purpose is, or at least try to, and they're missing from here. So this just all looks like a big set of the same piece of data over and over again. Okay, so int pointer, let's just pick one. Copy, and from int pointer to byte array. There. Copy int pointer to byte destination to start index. Start index 0 base of the destination. Perfect. That's what I was figuring. So now at this side, it should be 16. Excellent. That's what I'm expecting. And now we need the byte count, which is going to be, which one is that? Node count, size nodes. So we're putting in H1. H1 is, let's rename these because we're going to call it nodes pin. And the other one is mappings pin. Okay, so now we need, oh, nodes pin has already been corrected. Now we need the size of it, which is size nodes. So I have nodes pin and size nodes on the same line. That makes complete sense, comma. Anything else? No, that's it. Inside of this one, we are copying the nodes, this number of bytes, which is the size of the nodes array. We're copying it into bytes at an offset of 16 because we've already added 16 bytes at the beginning. Perfect. Now we need one more of these. Marshall.copy. And then the other one is mappings pin, comma. No, mappings pin dot address of pinned object, comma. Bytes, comma, 16 plus size nodes, comma, and then that's going to be size mappings. So we started the first one, set an offset of 16 bytes in the second, and then wrote for whatever his size nodes is. The next one did 16 bytes in plus however many size nodes went over for count, and then does it for the size of the mapping. And so that leaves us with the total byte size value that we put here. At this point in time, bytes now contains the full data. Should. All right, so now we do nodes pin free, and finally, what's the other one? Mappings pin dot free. Okay, yeah. And then we return bytes. Now bytes is being stored in the heap, so I don't have to, this is not a copy, which is incredibly valuable because this is over a meg in size. That's the full function. Now I need to go the opposite direction. Okay, so let's do this. We can do Marshall copy over to the values. Wait, I can do yeah, I think so. I might need to rethink some of this. In this case, I can get rid of the data that's already here. Is there anything that I need to learn from this one? No, I don't think so. All right. Now, starting over, we do have these 4 variables I want to extract from here, which are being stored in the first 4 bytes. We're doing a bit converter to get the bytes here. Okay. All right, so now let's see what commands I have on bit converter. Bit converter dot to, and this one is int, to int32. All right, now in this one, I can pass in a byte array and set a start index. Perfect. That's exactly what I want. So now in this one, we have a byte array coming into this, and we need to produce a set of nodes. We should be trusting that we can get the first ones. Okay, so you started coding at 5 years old? Because you don't look like that old. About 30 or 35. I'm 46. I actually started programming in the 4th grade. I was like 10 or 11, and I learned programming before I learned algebra, which I'm not sure if that's entirely the reason, but I would consider it to a certain degree a curse. I could solve all the math problems that we needed to do in school, like all the way through high school, um, through code. I understood it in code logic. And so having to write out work, like how I figured it out, I didn't think of it in the way that the schools did. And so it made no sense writing it out their way. And so I could just write a piece of homework or a piece of code that would solve it. And I always figured that if I understood the math problem well enough to convert it into another symbolic language and then process that and get the answer back out and give the answer at the end, I know how to do it. Um, the problem is that that's not entirely true. There's a few things where the elements are building off of each other, especially when you're talking about like ratios, like 4/5 or something like that. And then you can do things to convert the way you're dividing those that you can't do through floating point precision. And I was living in the world of floating point precision. Anyway, so I did horrible at math and I thought I was absolutely terrible at it. In the meantime, I was developing I developed my own physics engine. I developed rotational gravity, orbital cameras, or orbital gravity, orbital camera work, um, statistics being used for my own AI models that I was developing in Visual Basic for like VB6 from the 1999. But I could not read math. It disappears in my head when I'm trying to watch it. But I don't know if that's because I learned algebra or code first. All right, bit converter to int64. No, but okay, I know I can get the data that I want, so we've got the bytes. Node count is now going to be, did I put these in the same order? Node count. Okay, so I'm going to go with the order that I have in here. Size nodes, size mappings. All right, so in this case, it is, I'll just pass these ones in through here. Well, it sounds pretty awesome, but I think of it as awesome a lot of times, but like the way that I learned and picked all this stuff up. But at the same time, if I had figured out or learned or taken the time to actually do mathematics the right way, I kind of feel like I would have been able to do a lot more. However, I wasn't able to go to college because you can't get into college, especially for programming, without really good math skills. And my math skills were terrible. My grades in it were horrible. I did 5 years of high school instead of four and almost flunked my fifth one. But I was at home programming when I got home instead of doing homework. So it's questionable as to which way might have worked out better. But I guess in this case, I got used to reinventing the wheel so many times that it became more like second nature. And I feel like I have a really good in-depth knowledge of why I'd use a lot of these routines because I had to build them from the ground up. And after that, I find out that, oh yeah, this is a thing. This is dependency injection. That's what this system is, or whatever pattern or system we're using. But then I don't learn things like ECS as well. So I have to do it. I'm doing it my own way. I mean, all the real devs did so. Academic dudes are losers. Mm, not really. I would disagree with that one. There are some very smart people who have gone to college. I've also seen some really dumb people come out of college. To truth be told, when I'm hiring people, if I'm and I've gotten the same thing from other people who went to college. When they're hiring people, they're usually far more motivated by someone who has personal vested interest in their knowledge rather than college experience. There's a lot of times where you get people out of college who, like in the past, I was hiring people for doing web development. And we would ask them to do like the basic HTML skeleton, which that's what are the basic tags you need on any page for an HTML page. And so someone who's been doing HTML for 4 to 7 years, 4 years of college plus 3 years of doing web development outside, that's their resume coming in. That's what they're telling us. We ask them that information and they don't know it. They don't know that you're supposed to have an HTML tag at the beginning, a header tag, a body tag, and close them out. Like they couldn't tell us that, which was amazingly scary. And then we have some kid comes in who hasn't gone to college, who's still like just got out of high school, and they know the stuff like right off the top of their head. And that's exactly the things we need someone to come in and do at that point. So yeah, you can tell who got the job, and it wasn't the person who went to college for it. Now, that's not always the case. There are times where, like, the mathematic order of how you have your data structures, it's really important. And you usually don't learn that on the streets. You learn that by coding on your own. So that was an area that I didn't get into until far later. Okay, so 864. No. Bit converter. These ones. Okay. So size nodes is the first one, then size mappings. Then it is node count, then node mapping count. Okay, so I have these in the correct order. So now I'm going to say that is bit converter dot int32 to int32, and the data that I need this to come from is going to be bytes, comma, and the next one is the start index 0, because it already knows the length of the type. It's exactly what it needs. Perfect. V address. Okay. 0 to 32, and then we're going to offset these ones by 4, by 8, and by 12. Time. I mean, all really. I definitely also know plenty of people who went to college and it was like a beer fest for them. Like they're in college studying something, they have a major, but they still don't have plans of what they're going to do. Now, there's reasonable truth to that you enter into like programming, and now AI is taking over so much stuff. And now what does it actually mean to be aiming for that target as a profession? And that's kind of a tough one to answer. All right, now I need to convert the data back. Was there any issue with the, no, GC allocation. So with the GC allocation, I just need to get the handle to the array that I'm going to be targeting it to, and I should be able to reach out from the byte that I'm in. So doing buffer block copy. No, I don't need the buffer block copy, a Marshall copy. Marshall copy does the array from the beginning. Okay, there was an issue. So I've got 2 sets of arrays being stored in here, and now I need to get 2 arrays out. But the command in here, when we're copying data over for marshall.copy, goes from a pinned source and then to an array. Oh, maybe this does the exact opposite direction. And if that's the case, then the index should be from the other one. Let's just try and assume that this is going to work. We've got bytes. Now we need our nodes. So what is this one? It's our nodes array. Nodes equals new. I'm using a rough list for this. Am I going to be able to? Okay. Wait, why is it complaining? That is a rough list, yes. Of node. Wait, so what is the complaint here? Nodes. Yeah, we've got the data here. Why can't I set it to a new instance? I can just set it to new, right? Because it already knows the type? Oh, I'm in the static method. That's why. Got it. Uh, I did jumped med school after 1 year of uni because that was doing versus what was seen in uni are very different. That was at least the cause in EU, or the case in EU. Okay. Yeah, I don't know too much about like the European education system. I do know like the US education system was largely a bunch of waste. Um, I've taught at some colleges, and it was just kind of amazing at some of the points. I did advising work for, or helped advise people through their stuff. And I remember this was like 7 years after Flash was obsolete, where the browsers had cut it out. And the advanced web development curriculum at one of the colleges, like a 4 year college in the area or university, um, was for Flash. But then also mathematics. When you get into computer programming, there's mathematics requirements that are usually pretty strong, which prevented someone like me from getting into them. But then if you go in, math is unique to what you're using the computer programming for. And so in most cases, for programming, the average web developer creating websites does not need to know calculus. They don't have reasons for it. It's only if they're doing something special within the domain of that technology. But yet, almost every single college and university puts a very intense mathematics requirement on anyone getting any kind of computer training. And it's like, yes, we get this, those things do calculator work, but why is that blocking it? Why is that blocking someone from making websites? All right. That was actually one of the reasons I moved to Australia, because the education system out here is a lot better than the US. All right, nodes equals, yeah, we're not static, so that's what that one is. Ref list needs a size. So this one, we have a capacity. Wait, don't I have capacity in there? How did I set the ref list? So inside of here, do I have any constructor? Ref list, default size, that's it. Equals new, and inside of this is default size. Perfect. Inside of there, that one is going to be node count. Perfect. Okay, and inside of here, I also have, oh, it's private for the access to this one. So I'm going to change that one to internal. That way I can get access to this. All right, and the second one is mappings equals new ref list map index, and that's default size colon mapping count. Okay, so I've got the two items that I need. Now I need pointers to them. Okay, so yeah, let's get the pointers. That's effectively these two items. What is that? Nodes pin, GC allocate nodes, and mappings. Wait a second. GC allocate, in those cases I was going against the array, so that shouldn't be nodes. That should be nodes dot values. And this dot values. That was probably going to break the code. Because it's an array and it's doesn't have a known size, so that's going to be stored in a heap. So this is just a pointer to it. I don't know if the GC allocation would deal with that, or if it says, oh, hey, we're going to get you a pointer to this pointer. And then that would really screw up the memory, and I don't want to do that. So we'll go directly to the array. You need to do a video about how you created the ref list so I can keep asking you to watch it to learn how to use it. I like how many times you call out that I need to watch a video that I made. All right. Yeah, but in this one, I'll create them custom. So I usually find it easier to create a new one designed specifically to my needs at hand, and then use it for that purpose, as opposed to having to dig through other ones and try to figure out which one's going to be the best suited from this one. There's native array collections, but what is there, like 20, 30 different arrays in there? And then trying to figure out exactly what their intents are for each one, I still have a problem with that. I did see some documentation that spelled it out a little bit better at one point, but I haven't been able to find it again. Actually, that might be a good thing to email Richard Fine with. He, I think, sent me that documentation in the first place. Okay. Well, that explain everything. So I guess you already made tons of them, so you're not even trying to memorize them. Yeah, I was building custom structures. I built one to handle structures of data faster than system dot or generic list. That basically acted like generic list, but to store data that was going to be referenced in game objects. And I needed to be able to look up in random order. So I can't remember the exact things that I did to make it work. But when I tested it, in the cases where the data was randomized, where you didn't know the order, you didn't just set up like, here's just add 10,000 objects and then operate on them in sequence. It was faster. It was about 15% faster than the generic list. Now, that was for metagravity, and I was creating it so that we could handle like 10,000 remote nodes or 10,000 CCUs locally, which is most places don't even have servers that can operate that efficiently for game servers. But we're trying to get the clients to have 10,000 mirror images of what network characters are doing out in the world. All right, so we've got the mappings, we got the nodes, now we got the ref list. Let's create the handles. So the handles are GC handle, and this one's going to be nodes pin. Hey, wait a minute. With this one, ref list, I've got the default size. Did I create something to set the size? We've got erase, remove at, clear length, on before, deserialize. No, it's just when I initialize it, I can set the size. Okay. Yeah, wouldn't matter. I'm not going to gain any performance because when it deserializes the data or when it needs to pull it in, it's going to start with a 0. So it does have to instantiate a new set when it's doing this. That's fine. All right, so nodes pin, home, back, nodes pin equals, and what was this one? Marshall, GC handle alloc. And inside of this one, I need the reference, which is going to be nodes.values, comma, and now I need pinned. Okay, that explain everything. So, yeah. GC handle. The other one is also going to be, what is that? Pins. It's nodes pin and mapping pins. Mappings pin equals GC handle dot alloc dot nodes dot values, not nodes, mappings. GC handle pinned, take that one. All right, so now we got the pinned. Now we're going to try. What was that? Oh, it's because it put me inside of the catch. I don't care about that one. All right, so inside of here now I need to start copying the data back out of it. So in this one, we got the handles, we got the data that's already a lot of the proper size. So now Marshall.copy. And now for the copy, oh good, it does have int pointer destination and start index associated with the source. Perfect. Okay. All right, so at least you can't transfer from one array to another array from different offsets using the the Marshall copy, but you can. So at least one of them has to be the start of it. However, once you've got a pointer, you can always take the pointer and just add to it. You add bytes to it, and you're literally changing what the pointer's address is. So I guess you could do it that way. Okay, Marshall.copy, and the first thing that we need is the data source, which is going to be, in this case, the bytes. Make sure I'm looking at the right thing. Yeah, bytes, which is bytes, comma. And now the next thing that we need is the start index, which is 16, because we're grabbing nodes first. Which one did we write first? Nodes. Yeah. Okay, so we wrote nodes, and that is, which one is this? Nodes pin. All right, and then size nodes, size mappings. I have a significant concern that when I'm telling it to write to an array, when I get a pointer to an array, I'm actually getting a pointer to this pointer that points to the array. But I feel like it's intelligent enough to understand that I want the underlying data of the array, not the pointer of it. All right, so now I need, what is this one? How much data am I moving? And that is size nodes. What am I seeing wrong here? Oh, address of pinned object. Okay. Address of pinned object. Cool. Now we're going to do the same thing. Bytes 16, and that one's going to be plus size nodes, and this one's going to be mappings. No, mapping size mappings. Okay. So we got that one, and then this one is the mappings pin. Okay, so bytes 16 plus size nodes, mappings pin, and size mappings. That should give us everything. Now, I'm not going to put a catch in here. We're just going to put a finally. Okay, now we're not going to throw anything because we don't have an error, at least not that I'm aware of at this moment. Now we need to pin or free the pins. So nodes pin dot free and mappings pin dot free. Something else that I find helps me a lot is I don't like this is kind of, I think, the idea of how we should be using places like Stack Overflow. Like personally, I don't think anyone should use Stack Overflow. I think it is a cesspool of just horrible people. You ask for help and usually you get yelled at for it. And it's obnoxious. And I've created multiple accounts there over the years and then eventually deleted them just from how horrendous it was. And attempt to reconnect. Is it reconnecting? Okay, it reconnected. I'm not sure what happened. I lost network or something like that, but it's back online. Anyway, but yeah, Stack Overflow, I recommend against that at any point that you can. Just don't use it. I don't even like to depend on getting data from it if I can avoid it. But anyway, the use of the data, like you just copy and paste the data and then you don't really learn from it. And so you really need to understand like every piece of what's going on there. And it's the same thing with AI. If you just let the AI do it and you copy it in there, yes, you've achieved what it allowed you to achieve, but you didn't achieve that on your own. So if I use AI, I'm going to go use it and try to use it just to teach myself. I do have a difference of opinion at one point, and that's Unity UI, the older UI system in particular. They had like 5 different static function sets that you would try to use, like GUI editor utility, GUI utility, GUI, and something else as well. And they only, some of them have button commands, some of them you can use in Gizmo, some of them you can use in the updates, some of them you use in the editor, but you can use them from multiple classes, and the one you would normally use in this class doesn't have a button command, so you need to use button from one of the other ones, and it's just this horrible mesh of interwoven commands that just don't make sense for where they're placed. And in that case, I'm like, that's a good spot for AI to solve something. All right. Okay, so what do we got here? Mappings.free, and something is unhappy with this closing. Return statement is missing. Okay. Yeah, that would help. Return. Oh, we don't need a return statement. We're setting the values directly. So this one is void. And there is no return statement. Okay, cool. But yeah, if you want to learn this stuff, do it. Like, just use AI to show you the way if you need to, and then test it, try it yourself, write the commands yourself, make sure you understand everything that's coming through it. Okay. S. There we go. And what are these? Are these errors that we got in here somewhere? Hey, they are errors. Oh, 2 bytes and from bytes have changed. Okay, so to begin with, we get a byte array by passing this information in. Second off, from bytes, we just call it, and then we get that. All right, 2 bytes, we just pass the information in, and now we are logging the values. Okay, that's right. So we put the data in there, and then we're going to test it. Got it. And what is this one? Editor utility dot dirty set dirty, and that one is this. That way it knows that this one is messed up. Okay. So in this case, when I try to write the file, it's supposed to convert everything to bytes using the marshalling copies, the block copies, and then it's supposed to restore it back to it. So if it has the same data, it's there. However, that one still feels a little off because I'm not actually testing the original data. Oh, I know what I can do. All right, so in that case, I'm going to say, what is the type? We're going to say var data, sure, equals scriptable object dot instantiate, and in this one we need data, not data, it's designer traffic data. Okay, and all right, so we'll just set that one, and now we're going to say data dot nodes equal. Oh, we got new right here, so we're restoring the data. Oh, that's a problem. So inside of here, I never set the capacity or the length. So with this one, we're setting the values, we're storing whatever it has in there, and it's based on capacity, not length. Okay. Do I use the length in here? Length. So I am using length. So the size that I'm extracting out of that is literally just that one. So that means that my capacity and my length are set to the count, that I pulled out of this. So I do need to set those fields as well. In that case, I'm going to put in a thing on these lines that say, and that's not from bytes, this is what we're storing, but we've got the data, we're just going to match the data size. All right, so in this case, we just set nodes, so nodes dot, oh, I'm setting it right here, so let's do this one. Nodes dot length equals node count, nodes dot size, dot capacity equals node count, mappings dot length. And right now, this one knows too much about what's going on in that class, but I'm not too concerned about it at the moment as something that I would want to clean up and create a better serialization process for this one, or binary serialization. It's not serialization if it's binary, not in this case, because it doesn't hold descriptors of the data. It doesn't understand. It has to just flat out understand the data it's going into in order to extract and get the type. All right. So it's just binary. All right, length equals node mapping count, and mappings dot capacity equals what is this one? Mapping count. Oh yeah, both of them are the same thing. All right, so I created new ones, and oh, if I reset that, the default size is going to set the capacity already, so I don't need to set that one. However, the data getting manually put in there should be pushing out the index for the length. Wait, was length right? Length is how much we're using, and capacity is how much space we have available. All right, so that's correct. That's my index, so to speak, of the last of the one after the last index. All right, nodes pin, free, mappings pin, free. The data, what's the test case in this one? We create the data. Oh yeah, we're generating the node. So this node equals dot nodes equals new value ref list. Okay, yes, in this one I have to create it manually. So, oh, and this one, so we create the ref list, and that is for what? A node. So we construct a new one. And now I'm not going to put this into this line. What? I have a highlighted section. I'm trying to put a closing replace it with a closing parentheses because I have the highlighted code, and I'm trying to put the closing parentheses there. So backspace. All right, so we created that one. Now we're going to say data.nodes.add delete new node there. And then we're going to put the same thing for the other one. Control C, and inside of this one, Control V, close that one out there. We don't need that in there. Oh, no, we do. There, and same with this one. Okay, so that adds the nodes. Now we're going to go data dot mappings equals new ref list index map. Now the index map, data dot mappings dot add new index map. All right, now fields inside of it, A equals 0, B equals 0. That's all I need to set. Data dot mappings dot add, and then new index map. And we'll do the same thing as the other one where we did a int.min. What? Oh, A equals int.min, comma, B equals min.max. Min.max? Int.max. Okay, so now I have this scriptable object and I want to serialize the data from it. So now these are public functions, toBytes and fromBytes. So we created the new designer. Now, was there something else I need to do from this one? It wants an original. Can't it just construct an empty one? Create instance. There we go. So instantiated, it treats it like a prefab. All right, and then in this one, we don't need to set anything. That's fine. Oh, it does need the type, which is DTD. There we go. Okay, so we've got that one in there. Now we need to call the toBytes inside of it, and then the fromBytes on us. All right, yeah, let's do that. Okay, so BS equals bytes, toBytes, and this one should be from the one that we just set. So data.toBytes. There. So we're converting this one over, and this should effectively turn our data into the same thing that we just saw. Okay, so now do I still have my debug log validations? No. And I deleted that one, thinking I wouldn't need it. Okay, whatever. I'll be able to see the numbers and compare them against what I've got down here. That works for me. All right, save that, and now let's return to Unity. Vigilante 41. All right, I was hoping to have the whole game thing done tonight, but that was not the case. Do we get Unity yet? There we go. All right, so now I need to select that piece of data. There it is. Now, write to file. In this case, oh, it's taking a while. Oh, this has lots of serialized data. Okay, so I am going to have to do another bake tonight anyway, so maybe I'll have this one finished in that time. Okay, let's just change this. I don't want this deserialization. Unity, stop, please. 20. Now you're going to serialize it again, but you still got 524,000 elements here. Wait, you didn't even get the 20 on the other one. You just set it to 2. Okay, whatever. Well, I don't want 2 because that was the original value. That's the test value. There will be 20 items. Wait a minute. Why did that one set it to 2? 20. What? Oh, the serialization process doesn't work the same. It doesn't know how to work with the values in this one properly. Okay, it says that there's 20 values, but there's only 2 that it can work with. So I deserialized this one. There are some issues with it. Anyway, so now let's try write to file because I can see the elements in here and I can see the values and I know I'm supposed to have other values inside of this. So we got the mappings, we got the nodes, And now let's write to them. Write to file. Okay, so the first one was up, and the second one was down. Then I did float.0 or float.max. And so that's, yeah, we have the 3.4 to the power of 38. So with 38 more numbers behind it before the decimal. And then the last one was 0. So that's correct. Over here, we did minimum to maximum. C, in this case, uses a very huge number because it's a combination of the two. Ooh, I wonder if this does this live. I just want to test this. 2. It doesn't like me deleting it because the serialization process is messing with all three of the numbers, and every time it rewrites out the last number, it immediately replaces A, B, and C, but it does it in the order of A, B, and C. So if I want to change A or B, I have to come over to this one and start changing this one. And that lets me see how the bytes compare live. As an interesting trick in for like network games, when you have let's say the network server gives you a 32-bit integer, and that's how you can establish your ID. You can set it up so that you're using the first byte of it for some sort of classification, and then you've got 3 bytes left for a 32-bit, a 24-bit integer, which is like 16.7 million. And then basically that means that just by receiving the ID, the first byte of it tells you what type of object that it is. And that way you can send that data off to the correct system that's managing that type of data, assuming you only have 255 potential options for that. But that we would just do the same thing. We would create a custom type where this is the ID, and then this is the network ID, and especially if it's like 8 bytes or 32 bytes, that makes it much easier. Anyway, where's this length capacity? So that worked. The copying format worked. We were able to convert the data over into the structures that we need. Now, in this case, we need to make sure that the data does not serialize, and that it gets stored. It does not get serialized, and then when it gets loaded up from the file, it has to, let's see, it has to read it from binary from the file and load it into the array, which is not going to be serialized. So I need to have a do not serialize on that. That is an option, like aside from making it private, right? It's been a while. I don't remember having to face that specific issue before. So we have node over here, and then inside of this, we have this ref list. Let's say non-serialized. Is this part of Unity? That's part of system. But then serialized field is in Unity. Okay, I don't see anything for that. I want to do a search for that. All right. Oh, what's that? Okay. Let's see. Speaking about networking, you used your custom networking, or you usually use the ready ones. Um, in most of the times where I develop stuff, I prefer just building it myself. I found it easier than having to learn an entire architecture from a third party, especially when I don't have source code for that one. I can't look into the details. I can't control the server. I can't debug from the server side. When I can control it myself, I can see every piece of it. However, By doing that, that also means I am now in charge of setting up the servers. I have to create or manage the virtual machines in the cloud or the servers, wherever it's going to be hosted, to run that. And that's a pain point I don't want to bother with. So for that reason, I would usually go over to other ones. And quite frankly, the place I was working at, Metagravity, they closed down. The technology worked, period. It just worked. The only reason we ended up shutting down was because the way we were set up in our spending is we ended up running out of money before we got enough customers paying that could make it continue. Anyway, actually forgot why I was saying any of that. Use your custom networking. So I was talking about the fact that I use my own custom networking for this stuff. Oh yeah, but so Metagravity would have been my preference because the way that we had that system set up, it was incredible. You didn't have to worry about numbers. I love that. Most systems, you do have to do some special work to realize how it operates from server to server because you have to cross the boundaries from one server to another. And so you usually have to think about that when you're programming how to handle it with any network systems if you want to go beyond what a single network server can handle. Oh yeah, and the reason that I was searching here, where did they go? Unity, C#, do not serialize public field. Okay, serialization rules. Okay, serialization rules, Unity manual, serializable, non-serializable. Non-serializable is Microsoft. It uses that one. Perfect. So in this case, I would use non-serializable. There is a network service that I do recommend since Metagravity is not available. And that one is Coherence. Coherence had one of the absolute best structures that I've seen. We ended up doing a test when we were creating our network SDK, and we tried out like 5 different major SDKs. Coherence was one of them. And out of all of them, Coherence was one where we could get it working in a few minutes. Like we could test their stuff, we could effectively get it up and running and have a network, switch our game from single player to multiplayer, making sure that there's a few things that you have to have structured in your code to handle it right. But it would only take like about an hour to convert a small project like the Tanks game sample from Unity over. And the setup, the entire baking process was good. We ended up doing a similar thing where we created a baking process. We didn't mirror what they did, but we did some other stuff that was somewhat similar to it. And because that was the closest to what I think worked for most customers. Now, ultimately, I think it was, we also had a separate issue with the simplicity of being able to use it when it's in an auto baking tool like Coherence had. That's nice, but it needed to have one where we could just call out commands. Like we have our own like most Unity developers, you'll have your own structure of how you architect your prefabs, you set up your ID systems. And so the idea of now you have to merge that in with some other third-party system that has its own idea of how you work with code, that doesn't work for a lot of places. And so you want to switch it over to, I just want commands. Give me some commands that I can write to say, I have an object that has these fields in this data. I am sending this out. If I get that on another machine, create this prefab and give me the IDs back in another function. And so we had different ways of dealing with stuff inside of it. Okay, nodes, mappings, write to file, read from file. And so far, any of the pieces of information that I've said, they're based on generally public information. It's not things that are like privately internal or things that you can't find clear reference of somewhere else. So it's not like custom IP that I'm not explaining to people how we got servers that could do like 300,000 CCUs from a single machine. That's an area where I'm not gonna Yeah, I don't have the permissions to share information like that. But most servers, oh, why did they do that? Most server systems are limited to like 1,000 or 2,000 at max. Okay. Anyway, back to this one. We got the serialization. We know that we were able to transfer the data. We were able to do it by converting it to bytes and read that back out of a byte. Now, in this case, I don't want to actually store the data permanently, but I can still let the traffic designer come up. I just need to store it to a file. I need to know the file name that it's going to be saved to. And then when I tell it to do something with this, right after it's done baking or procedurally generating that data, I need it to write out to the file right away. Okay, so in this case, we got the nodes, they're public. We've got the structs, they're public. And we're going to do a non-serialized public uh, non-serialized. So we can still use the original references that are here, but now we need the file name. And also, I don't need to serialize these ones. I do need to serialize file name. What file is it supposed to be associated with? We also have distance from surface and the baked traffic data that it's supposed to move out to, which I will also have to update. Okay, so read from file, blah, 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 that's the file. No, that's not the file. File name. There we go. So right now I have the command for write file and read file. Write file. Oh yeah, so we've got the 2 bytes. Technically we don't need to do that. We validated the functionality. That's what we need to do there. Oh, save it. Control Shift S. And we're going to go back over to, I need to go into Unity. I'm going to lose all my driving data, and I'm not going to be able to do anything until I have it bake again, but I'm not going to finish this tonight. Okay. Hey, you give me permission, speak up. I am not an AI. All right. No, it's incredibly valuable, but I the company, the IP is still owned by the company, even though they went out of business. It doesn't mean that there aren't owners involved. And so I can't share that type of information. However, well, this is an area that I've been struggling with because I could teach how to do network servers and get them pretty close or take different approaches. And I was considering actually creating one just in pure C sharp. I don't think it would be able to hit the same type of numbers, but it certainly would be able to get over the 100, or it would be able to get over the 2,000 mark for the same type of data that the other servers struggle. It just wouldn't be using anything from their stuff except for things that are generally known already. They're already public domain knowledge about how you can do certain things, but I can't share which ones are which ones are related to theirs, because then it would give away too much of what's going on. But if I did do this, then I think I would create that one and then share it out, like how to do it, build out the server code. But the problem is that like creating a server code, I mean, like if it's open source and everyone can take it, then that's useful. People can you can keep a copy on GitHub and everyone can grab it and use it, and that's great. But that doesn't, the service provider for it is like a whole business model that stands on top of it. And that's where I don't have the comfortability managing the business model. Plus, given the fact that I was so tightly coupled with Metagravity and creating stuff for them, if I were to do that, then there's always a risk, especially if it's open source, they'd be able to see exactly what I was doing, and there shouldn't be any overlap where this was their IP that wasn't already something that was based on public knowledge. So it's tough. It's a question mark. I'd be really afraid of developing something like that and just running into a legal issue because I mean that technology, that's the type of thing that goes to billionaires, and um, I do not want to end up in a legal battle with a billionaire. Something you usually don't win. Compared to exit games, Photon, for example, is it still way better? Exit games, I don't know exit games. Photon Fusion, yeah, it's better than Photon Fusion. Coherence, in my opinion, was better than Photon Fusion. Photon I found to be kind of a pain to use. We ended up running into all sorts of issues when we were trying to develop with it, which that's one of our features. So we have performance is one question, which our code at Metagravity was able to beat out any of the competition. We had no trouble in that part at all. The second issue was usability. And so we found lots of issues when trying to follow their samples and create things. And a couple of members of the team had already been using Photon in the past and still found general issues with it in how to use it that were a pain. Now, that being said, we hadn't developed a good customer base yet, so we didn't have much feedback on our SDKs. So that also means that we don't know how it would have, someone else might have tried it and been like, we can't get this part to work. This doesn't make any sense to us. I don't understand what's going on here. Why is this so confusing? When we put all this work to make it really simple and obvious. But that was to our mentality, to our ideas. When someone else tries it, that's when we find out that our ideas are not so simple or don't make as much obvious sense to everyone. You can make stuff intuitive for yourself, but not anyone else. That's up to anyone else to figure out if it's intuitive. Oh yeah, but coherence. In my opinion, like coherence was still limited around like 2,000 users, CCUs that you could get to the server. Um, from the numbers that I remember seeing, and I talked with some of them online, um, and it runs on a different model than ours was. Leaving that one alone. But coherence, yeah, well, obviously it runs on a different model for the server because they're still locked down to like about 2,000 users for performance. Um, and anyway, so that was, but 2,000 users, I mean, that's similar for like Photon as well. It depends on how much you need from what's going on from the servers as to whether or not you're going to do more. And also, when you start questioning like the amount of data you need from a server, I mean, customers will easily be spending like $15,000 for a single server for a month, and that's reasonable. For like you might be spending something like that for a server that's handling like the load of 2,000 users, because you've got one of the higher power models running in there. But then we were doing that at Metagravity and hitting like 100,000, 300,000, and getting those numbers. And so you would end up needing far less servers, which when you think about like the network servers and the games and all of those ones that are trying to do these massive worlds and bring this stuff on, and you wonder why they go down after a couple months of being online. And it's because your server cost is like $10,000, $15,000 a month per server. And how many servers do they need? And then they need servers to be localized in a lot of cases. Uh, and yeah, it gets expensive fast. And so if you don't have the user base build up quickly enough, then you're literally just paying out money continuously, and you're just going to keep paying out more. And if you don't see a trend marking towards a direction that it's going to pay off, that's why they shut down. They can't afford it to stay open. I would say this, in my opinion, I wouldn't want to pick up a network server service from a place unless there was some sort of system involved where I could continue to run it by hosting it myself. Even if it meant that I had to pay licensing to the company, or that I had to, that it was while the company was still in business, I had to use their servers. That would be fine with me. but I don't trust any place. I don't trust Photon. I don't trust Unity. I don't trust Coherence. I don't trust any of the network service providers that they're going to be able to stay up. They're going to continue to provide me the same technology and service. Um, I want to be able to control that myself if I need to, and just let them make it comfortable. Okay, that explains why only old bad networking services are online, and no no thing better is popping nothing better is popping up. Yeah, like there's tons of network service places out there that are they've got all sorts of technologies. The open source ones are my favorite. The ones where it's like, here it is on GitHub. You can get access to the full copy of the source code so you can execute the server. I think a target business model for any place that wants to become a new power in network servers, they need to start it by making it open source to begin with, but something that only operates against a single server. So a single server running whatever they're doing, and it doesn't even need to be as high powered. So we could handle 100 users, 200 users, but it's not as like high performance of the code. So someone can't like try to decompile and disassemble the code to get everything out and understand what's going on. Um, and they can't join servers together or do any of that type of setup. But that means that if something goes down, they still have a way that anyone can do it. And then development teams, they can run their own instances relatively lightweight for a couple of developers working on their stuff. Indie projects can use it for free and basically just host their own network at their home. And then everyone has to get the IP address to their home. And yeah, I've done stuff like that in the past. But uh, and then the company has to come in and actually say, okay, we're providing this service, and this service we provide is, here's the free one that everyone can use. You can use it, and if you want to control your own servers, that's fine. It's one instance. Now that can work if you only have, if you're I forget the games, but you're only going to have 1,000 people per server or something like that, and that works. You can do that. You can control it yourself, or you can come to us and we can do it. And we'll be giving you whatever the CCU cost of, like, 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 CCUs for like 5,000 a month or 10,000 a month or something insane, significantly cheaper than what like Photon might provide or some of the other places. I think that would be a good business model for a network, but you got to go after the free first. You got to get people to use it and trust it. People don't want trust getting the games. Okay. I am going on way too many network tangents. And it is late. I need to get some sleep. It's like midnight 30 right now for me. All right. So I am going to, I need notes about what I'm going to do. I don't need those ones. They don't work. That's fine. What was I about to do? In this case, no data is serialized. Now, instead, write it to a text asset in resources as binary. Fill in the read code the same. Then make sure all procedural and bake use calls these commands as well. Replace Baker with the same thing. Not Baker. What was the other one? That one was traffic baked. Replace baked with the same thing. So the procedural traffic designer, where's the baked reference? There, F12. All right, so in this one, we have a node structure that's stored inside of this, and that contains, here's the node. We've got a total number of things. This one's unsafe so that we could actually store the exact data size that we need. Um, Technically, I don't need this one to be this size, and this is actually probably one of the worst possible cases I could have set myself up for memory, because of the fact that I am going across three cache lines. So that 196 bytes, if I'm anywhere from 128 to 196, and that is my default range, then I have now set myself up to go for three cache lines, which now guarantees that the processor is going to try to read the next cache line ahead when I get to that third one. Because my code asked for this one, then it went on to the next one, then it went on to the next one, and that didn't work. So yeah, so it does a cache line, it reads the cache line. Now it's spent resources and it's kicked something out of memory so that it can fit in this other 64 byte cache line, except we're not going to use that next one, and we already know we're not going to use the next one, but we can't pass hints onto the prefetcher. I don't get why we can't pass on hints to the prefetcher. There's even things in the RAM system. Like RAM's broken up into like different pockets. So it's actually like 8 different sectors of data. And if you grab your data from different sectors, it's faster than grabbing all the data from the same sector. And so systems actually put a, what is it, kind of they basically run it through like a CRC check, where they get a semi-randomized code from what address you have. So you go to address 1, address 2, address 3, it actually starts to distribute it across those different sectors. That way you get your RAM back out faster. And that's because who in code writing their code is going to be writing for what RAM is being used. Now at the same time, it would be really nice if we had commands to do that stuff. If we actually knew the hardware, we're going onto these servers, we know the exact technology and the exact structure of the data, or of the RAM and the bus systems and the prefetcher. We know which ones we're using. I would love to be able to write some prefetch instructions. I'd love to be able to write some other code. But that's usually passed entirely off to the hardware, and so I don't get control over it. I don't even get to see what it's doing. All right. Count. Okay, so I put that one in there. We got the baked. All right, but this one, what size am I looking at? 156 bytes. So I've got the size of this one, and then times however many nodes I've got, which in this case will be like 100 or 300,000 or 500,000, whatever I've got in the system. Are there duplicates? I was doing merging in the other one. Yes, I have duplicates in the current version of the code. I've removed all my merging, and that's why I ended up with 500,000 instead of 300,000. So with no merging done at all, so the merging was doing something. Now I've got 500,000 points. Oh well, it doesn't matter for the way that I've got the data working now. I'm done for the night. Okay, okay, that explains why the old bad network services are online. Yeah, there's I could talk for a long time about what's wrong with the networking, modern networking solutions and server systems, and how to solve a lot of it. Maybe I will do that sometime, but I need to solve this, and I'll do that tomorrow. I was hoping to finish this one tonight. I was also hoping this one would actually prove to be really easy, and I would just get it done in like 20 minutes, an hour. Thanks for all your explaining. Really appreciate it. That was a nice stream as always. See you soon. All right. Bye.